everyone, this is Mark at GiraffePad again, and in this video I'm going to walk you through the new activities feature that we have in your GiraffePad account now. So here I am in a typical learning program within GiraffePad, and if I scroll down the page, the first thing you will notice, and the area where all of this work has been dedicated, is the timeline of events and now activities that you can schedule as part of your blended learning programs that you create. So hopefully the first thing you'll see inside your programs when you create them is no longer is it just events, but we've added activities. So you're now able to differentiate between the live events that you run, either using Zoom or another platform, and dare I say it face-to-face, versus the more self-directed tasks and learning activities that you would like your learners to complete as part of their program. And so on this timeline you can now see that it looks very, very different. So first off, you'll see you can add activities in here. An activity is represented by this little orange hammer, and events are represented by that blue screen that you can see there. And you'll notice as well that now each activity and event also has a little bit of the description on the timeline. So it explains a little bit to the learner exactly what this particular event or this program or activity is about. For your information, this description is the first 3 lines of the description you create when you create an activity or event. So you can edit it at any point, but have a play around with that and get used to the fact that the first 3 lines of that description will be what is displayed on the timeline down here. If I move down through here, you'll notice at the bottom, we always had add event here, and you now have add activity. Now, another major part about this development is that we've introduced ways of you tracking activity and attendance of your participants throughout the program. So the first thing I'm going to show you is actually one of the changes we've made on adding an event. So if I click on this tab here and page down through, what you'll see here is just above the description box where you can add in your description. Remember, the first 3 lines of this is what will appear on the timeline. You've now got a choice of assume all learners attend or record individual attendance. If you leave it here as assume all learners attend, when your session finishes, so for example, let's say your Zoom session was due to finish at 5 p.m. At 5 p.m. when that session finishes, all the learners will automatically be ticked as having attended that, and they will show on your overview. If you record individual attendance, then after that session, you can manually go in and tick the ones that did actually attend and leave the ones that didn't blank. And I'll show you where that displays within the event. So if we go down here, for example, and have a look at this event, as I page down, you can now see against your learners, you'll have a tick or a question mark around their attendance. So obviously the green ticks mean these participants have attended. And if, for example, I want to say, actually, Harry did attend, I can click on Harry. Learner's attendance has not been recorded. So here you've got these little orange buttons, click on there, and I can mark Harry as attended. And if I do that by mistake, I can always go back in as mark as not attended. Okay, and you'll get the red cross next to his name. So we come back out of there and back out of the event, and we come back to the program timeline. So we have these activities. Now, an activity can be set for just about anything that you want, and it doesn't require you to be present or for you to run a Zoom session to go with it. So it could be a really set activity of a task you need them to complete, or it could be a more effective way of drawing their attention to a particular resource. So if you have a video that you particularly want them to watch, rather than just storing it in the general resources on the program page, you could create an activity with instructions that asks them to do something with that video and whatever learning that you require them to do, as an example. And if I go down here to show you how you create an activity, you use this button here, Add Activity. You give the activity a title, fairly self-explanatory. You choose the trainer on your account that's associated with it, but again, they don't necessarily need to attend if you like. You can choose a due date. If you put a due date in there, that's where it will appear on the timeline of your program page. If you leave the due date blank, the activity will sit at the bottom of the timeline like an ever-present activity. So you have a choice there. Create your description. The first 3 lines is what will appear on the timeline. And then you have these choices here. So from the learner, you can decide, do they need to upload links and files? If they don't, you can leave that out and it makes it a more streamlined page. Do you want learners to enter feedback on this activity? If you don't, you can leave that blank. And do you want learners to set actions and commitments as a result of the task they've completed? And if you choose any of these, you just toggle the switch to the right to be orange, and you can make your own choices. You also get to choose how you know that activity has been completed. So do you want the learner to mark the activity complete? So they've done everything that you've asked of them and they tick it as complete, and that updates your overview. If you need some input on this, so maybe you want to evaluate the quality of the work they've done, or review the questionnaire they filled in, or anything like that, you can set it so that the trainer can mark that activity complete. And if you have toggled that learners can upload links and files, if it's relevant, you can choose this one at the bottom here, which says actually the activity will auto-complete when the learner uploads a link or file. You also can choose whether the activity has a chat group. So if it's an activity that you just want people individually to get on with and complete, and they don't need to interact with each other, you can leave the chat group off, and that's one less chat group within that program. If you do want them to interact as part of the activity, you can toggle the chat group on, and that will add a group chat onto the activity page. So if I show you what an activity looks like when it's been set up, let's go into this particular activity here. So a few things that are different, but again we've tried to keep the look and the feel and the sort of user interface fairly similar. On the left hand side here you get an indication of all the options that you chose. So here we've seen that learners can upload links and files, they can enter feedback, the learner and the trainer can mark it complete, and actually it's showing as overdue because this was due on the 8th of February. On the right hand side you can set instructions for the learner as to what they need to do in order to complete this activity, and you can have as many of those in there as you like, a little bit like the objectives. You can delete them anytime, you can edit them at any time, and you can also move them around. So we haven't created auto numbers in there in terms of the order because you might want to reorder them. You can type a number in as you create the text in there. And as we move down you can set objectives, you can add resources if it's relevant. I've obviously added a group chat into this particular activity, and again down here I can see who has completed this and who hasn't. So where there's a green tick, they've completed it. This one is incomplete at the moment, and where there's a red cross, this is because even though, for example, Leonard had marked it complete, you've obviously evaluated it, you don't think it's complete, and you've gone in and marked it as incomplete. So if I go into Danny down here, we can see, again we've got this status, activity completion not yet recorded. I can mark as complete and we have a tick there. So if we come back out of that activity, for activities you get the usual description and title. Like we said, you can archive an activity, you can delete it, you can clone it and edit it, so all the functionality you're used to with the event pages. If we come back out, so now you've got lots of ways of indicating if the learner has completed an activity, if they have attended an event, and you need somewhere to view that in one easy screen. So at this top bar here, you'll see you have a little orange overview box. If you click on that, that brings you to this page. So you'll see you have your list of learners on the left here. You have all the events and activities that you've created as part of this learning program, and if it's a long learning program you'll have a scroll bar along just to drag it along to see everything. And you can now track the progress of all the participants. Green ticks means they've completed the activity or attended the event, question marks not complete yet, and here you've got these red crosses where you've actually indicated they didn't attend or they haven't completed that activity and they need to go and do more, and obviously it's too late to re-attend this event. So a really easy way of keeping on top of all of the progress that your participants are making through their program. One last thing on here is you can dive in to individual learners and you can see their individual timeline down here with their progress marked on here as well to remind yourself of which events and activities they're in. And obviously they can set their usual learners program objectives. And that's the new feature that's in here. So you can now set activities on your timeline for those self-directed tasks. You can have any combination of activities or events. You can invite learners in as and when you're ready, or you can pre-invite them into everything. So all the usual flexibility that you're used to. You can set an activity for an individual learner on the program if you choose to. You can clone those activities. You can decide how they're completed or marked complete. And you have this overview button here to track that progress throughout the duration of that program. Hopefully that has given you a good insight as to how to use this new feature. As always, we're really available for Zoom calls to go through it and walk through, or any questions you may have, but enjoy building those blended learning programs.